All right, guys. Hello, everyone.
Yo, what's up, everybody?
And
We're back with another podcast.
Yep, it's our fourth official podcast, and we're here with.
With Mrs. Fournier, and our interviewers will be Macy and Katie.
Ooh, someone new. Wow. All right, this is exciting. I can't wait for you guys for this interview to happen. All right, let's get it started.
All right.
Hi, I'll be asking the first question. What is your favorite class in high school and why? And what's the most important thing you've learned from that class?
My favorite class in high school was English. But that didn't happen until my senior year of high school. My 7th grade English teacher sort of ruined English for me. She had us read David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, and that took all year, and it was miserable and awful. And I hated reading until senior English class. Mrs. Chapman brought back my love of reading, the discussions, the analysis, all the things that I love about teaching is what I fell in love with. And it spurred on that passion for college and my career. And I can't remember the second part of the question, but that was my favorite. That was my favorite class in high school.
Was there a particular moment, or was it kind of just the whole year that brought you back?
It was the whole year that brought me back. It was reading, Macbeth and Heart of Darkness and all, I think we read Great Expectations, which is Charles Dickens. But when you have the right teacher that's passionate and knows what they're talking about, it makes a really, really big difference. So just seeing all those books in beautiful ways is what did it. It was a good teacher. Yeah.
Our second question is, when you were a senior in high school, did you know for sure you wanted to be an English teacher, or did you have something else in mind?
Right. No, I didn't. When I was a senior in high school, the plan was to become a speech language pathologist. I'd wanted to be a teacher when I was in first grade. I'd set up my little troll dolls and my little stuff like that. I'd ask my teacher for extra homework, and
Wow.
I would sit down and I would bring out my mini chalkboard and I would teach them. But then along the way, my dad would love my dad. But he's like, he told me you don't want to be a teacher, and he gave me reasons and kind of steered me off the path. So speech language pathology seemed like a good second choice. The opportunity to still be in the schools, or I could be in the hospitals, working with speech impediments seemed like a really, really neat thing to do. Graduated high school, got into college, went into linguistics, which is the study of language, for speech language pathology. Graduated college and went, well, shoot. Got into grad school too, and decided that that's not what God had for me. That's not where I was meant to be. I was called to be a teacher. And so, so that was able to finally kind of make my voice heard and trust who God created me to be, instead of listening to, as much as my dad loves me and wants what's best for me, to be able to listen to what God's got for me and not.
Yeah, for sure. This is a little bit off script, but so how did you know, or how could you listen to God's voice? Because I feel like as high schoolers, we're all going through the same thing, and we're like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do with our lives for college? So how do you listen to His voice, and how did you know for sure that teaching was what you were meant to do?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Okay. So I feel like there's some ways that you can look at that, right? So especially as seniors, are like, where does God want me to go? Is it college A or college B? What is the right answer, right? Should I be a speech language pathologist or a teacher? What is the right answer? And I think sometimes God's got a specific plan, right? And it's through prayer. It's through wisdom of the godly influences around us. It's from scripture, right? But I also think God has given us talents and abilities. And those talents and abilities are the paints and the crayons and the markers. And God gives those to us and says, make me a beautiful painting, make me a beautiful picture. I don't know how you know when it's specific and when it's paint me that picture, right? I don't know. I do know that when I look at the the talents and the abilities that God's given me. Even just with like speech language pathology, you're normally, if you're going to be in the school system, you're going to be with the younger kids usually.
Right.
And so when I went to graduate school and I was doing the classes and the I did substitute teaching, and I did secondary. So I did junior high and high school, which was great. And then I went and I did elementary, and I was like, this is the worst. I love kids, but I was like, I do not enjoy this at all. So it's figuring out who God created you to be. And I mean, this goes to, I stayed home for 2 years, right? I've stayed home the past couple of years. And I was like, this is it. I quit my last teaching job and I'm like, woo, see ya. I'm out and be a stay-at-home mama for the rest of my life. I've always wanted to be at home. And when I was at home, like, just to speak to this point, I was like, I'm not doing what God's called me to do. Like,
Okay.
I just knew it in the, I don't know how helpful this is, but like, I knew it in the fiber of my being. That when I sat with my own 2 kids and I taught them English, it was beautiful and wonderful.
Wow.
And when I taught them science and history and every other subject, it was miserable. I was miserable. They were miserable. So yeah, wisdom and scripture and like paying attention to the talents and abilities that God has given you, and not trying to be something that the world calls you to be, or something that your parents call you to be, or that culture calls you to be. Like, honestly, staying in tune with Christ, and that is huge. I don't know if that answered your question, but
How do you know if it's like the world and your parents telling you what to do, or if it's God telling you what to do? Just like a lot of us are trying to figure that out.
I
Like,
know.
who do we want, or who do our parents want us to be?
Mom and dad want what's best for you. They do. They want to see you thrive in beautiful ways. And God knows what's best for you. And it's hard sometimes, right? I don't know. It's being willing. You need to be willing and open to having tough conversations with mom and dad. And it's making sure you are focused, that you are in scripture too, right? That you're in prayer, that you are in relationship with Jesus. Yeah, I don't have, because it took me until I graduated college to realize that what dad wanted for me and what God was calling me to be were 2 different things. Yeah, so I don't know.
Going off of that, how did you know God wanted you to be at Maranatha compared to any other school?
So I told you I was a stay-at-home mama. I knew God was calling me back into the classroom. I was praying about it. I've got friends, Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown, Mr. Martin, Mr. Miller, Miss Reed, Miss Seggy, right? That when an English opening would come up, they'd call and be like, no, I'm doing this stay-at-home mama thing. All is right and great with the world. So when I realized God was calling me back into the classroom, Maranatha is just always in the back of my mind. I looked at who the teachers were, in like September before, like last September. I was like, oh, these teachers are never going to leave. Like, I did it. Like, I ruined God's plan forever, which we don't do, but that was where I was at. And I started praying that God would lead me and show me where he wanted me to be, if that was back in the classroom. And Mr. Plotnick called in like January. So I really knew in like September, not this past September, but the September before. And so then the January right after that, Mr. Plotnick called and was like, all right, like, that's a little kiss on the cheek from Jesus, like that might be where he has me. So yeah, just open doors.
Does anyone in the audience have questions for Mrs. Fournier? Anything? Okay, so moving on with our questions here. What do you think is the most important quality for a teacher to have?
Love of Christ, because teaching is hard. And so to be kind and loving, so to love Jesus, to and then especially in English, you have such amazing subject matter with the book. So to be able to look at that through Jesus goggles is amazing. So you've got to be in touch with Jesus, in on point, in relationship. Love of your students, like you guys have to feel loved, you have to feel seen and valued and heard, and then love of your subject matter. If you are not passionate about it, nobody else is going to be.
Right.
So number one quality of any teacher is just overwhelmingly love.
How do you show your students how much you love for them?
How much I love you guys?
Like, what's the best way that you can show that to your students?
The best way to show that to my students is, for me, I think, for you guys to know that I'm here for you. So like, I know it's just talking, but I want you guys to, like, I tell you every day, like, I love you guys on your way out. I call you guys my loves. And then, but those are just words, right? So it's actions too. Honestly, it's doing what I do, right? It's preparing a class for you guys. It's knowing my subject matter. It's going in and it's teaching you guys well. It's showing you Jesus in what we learn. It's preparing you for your sophomore year if you're a freshman, for your senior year if you're a junior. It's preparing you for life. It's helping you grow in a love of reading, because that's going to take you places. You're going to have to read no matter what you do. You're going to have to write no matter what you do. So that's, making sure I like have conversations with you, look you in the eye, like, yeah, like making sure that you see, I see you and I know you and I want to know about you and I care about you. I care about what you did this weekend. I care about where you are with Jesus. If there's any way that I can help you, I want to know that. There's that.
Well, it looks about all the time we have today.
It was so fast.
Thank you so much for joining us.
For sure.
Yes, we really enjoyed having you here.
Woo! Yay!
Thank you guys for tuning in for the next for this podcast. That's podcast episode 4. I was actually reading right now, but looks like that's all the time we have. Tune in for the next podcast. That'll be next semester, which will probably be like somewhere in January. But this will be on Instagram and YouTube. So please have fun. Stay safe. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, that's good.